I want to tell a brief story about Reb Daniel and the first time that we met, which was at my very first Ohala. Ohala, as Renee likes to refer to it, is the rabbinical convention for unconventional rabbis. So, what I knew going to my first Ohala, that I had been accepted to the rabbinical program, and that Reb Daniel was going to be my DAS, my director of studies, and I had never met you before. Maybe we briefly talked on Skype, I don't remember. In any case, we met at a small table upstairs at the Boulderado, right? And introduced yourself. And I said, I needed to tell you something that was important. And I hope it didn't disqualify me from being a rabbinical student. And you were eager to hear what I had to say. And I said, well, truth be told, I'm not really that interested in being a rabbi. That's not all that's important to me. I'm really more interested in having a place to have disciplined study. And you looked at me without a beat and you said, you're exactly the kind of student we're looking for. So that was my wonderful introduction to you. And so without further ado, please welcome in a Moshe, Reb Daniel Siegel.
Okay. Shulamit, are you by yourself all of a sudden?
Yes. Reb J went back to his hotel. He's going to sign in from there.
Oh, okay. He can sign in from there. I was excited to see him because I haven't. Jay wrote also one of the really memorable responsa for when I was teaching that class in the ordination program. So I still remember it. So if I don't
About
get to say it when he,
tattoos.
hey,
It was about tattoos.
it was about tattoos.
Mhm.
Right. From which I discovered that there is not a prohibition on tattoos the way we traditionally say we have. So it doesn't mean we don't it doesn't mean we like them, although it seems to hardly matter anymore. Okay, so Rabbi Mark asked me if I would add to his introduction. If I really did it, we wouldn't do anything else, so I'll try to keep it very brief. Um, so as most of you already know, I'm sure that I was the first person to get smicha from Reb Zalman. And actually, it was an interesting piece that Pam Friedman put on the list lately, where she said Zalman never wanted to be called Reb Zalman. He called us Reb because it was just a term of endearment. And when she wrote that, and I remembered again the way he would get on the phone or the way he would leave me a message, and he would always say, Reb Daniel, right? Reb Daniel, this is Zalman calling, right? And anyway, just to see that, we were even looser in those days, I guess. Um, so I served as the executive director of Aleph for several years. After I left a position at Dartmouth, I was the Jewish chaplain at Dartmouth College for also a number of years. Um, uh, and so I took that job. I want to say also that under the really profound influence of Reb Marsha, because she gave a class in the Sfirot at that Kala, and I sat against the wall in the corner and was awed by her. And I thought, oh, if this is what Aleph is, I'm in. And so actually, she and I have been talking about putting that class up on the Aleph catalog, resources catalog. So anyway, I did that for a while, and we never could, as I mentioned to your good rabbi just a few minutes ago, we never could really raise very much money. And so everything was hand to mouth all the time. People doing, excuse me, multiple jobs. And so I got to be a high school teacher for a year because they didn't have enough money to pay me a full salary. And my one of my favorite jobs, and this is where I echo you, Mark. One of my favorite jobs of all time was being the shamus at the shul behind our house in Boston. because it was so much fun. I got to decide what food was available for Kiddush. I got to make sure that the wine and the challah were on the bima when there was a bar mitzvah. I did the weekday services, so there were 3 of those a week. And when people would come and complain about the rabbi, I would say, well, the rabbi is a really wonderful person, and I'm sure that if you just spoke to her directly, this would all clear up. Would you like me to mention you to her? And that was it. And then I didn't have to think about it after that. And Barbara Pensner was a great rabbi. And so gradually, though, we found that we just couldn't make ends meet in Boston anymore. And our landladies were fabulous because they liked us so much that they never raised the rent, and they were losing money on us month by month. So eventually, we just had to say that I'm a Canadian born, and we lived many years in Canada before we came back to the States. And so I just said, well, we're just going to have to go back to Canada where we can afford health insurance. And okay. So we did. We moved to where I am now, which is a place called Hornby Island. It's a little tiny island, has about 1,000 year-round residents. Oh, hi, Judith. And so we moved here. Actually, it was like just over 20 years ago now. I discovered that what I always really wanted was a home. I had never lived more than 10 years in any one place, and not even 10 years in any one house. So I think I was one of those places where I feel very much like my father, who I think was really also desired to be a homebody. And so it's been wonderful for me to live here and have a whole other community and a whole other life. And I was involved in the community here for a number of years as on the sort of administrative side of the community. And now I've recently joined what we call Conservancy Hornby Island, which is a group that does education, advocacy, and action for land and water, around here. And we're about to, in another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be putting on something called the Herring Fest, which has become quite the regional activity. If you want to come out, I got a bedroom, you can use it. But it's become, I say, a real regional activity. We have people from up and down the coast who come, and indigenous people, and we have films, and on Shabbos we have what's called the Herring School. And on Saturday night, we have what's called the herring ball, because, when the herring come, their protection method is to form a ball. So that's how and it is quite, when it's working, and I'll leave it at this, but I am a nature freak these days. And when it's working, when the herring run works, it is just the most amazing spectacle. I remember going out one Shabbos afternoon for a walk down to the beach, and everybody was out. The herring were there, they were spawning, the water was turning colors from the spawn, and the seagulls were flying around, and the sandpipers were flying around, and the eagles were there, and the sea lions were cruising around. Everybody was there for the annual herring feast. And so it is one of those things. People come here just to see it. People come here for our Herring Festival, and it is one of the many treats of living, where you kind of know where your food comes from. Okay, so that's me, and I just wanted to say all that. And now I wanted to start. I've been trying to figure out sort of what's the right opening, and I have a sense of it, but I don't have a polished speech about it. And I'm going to rely a lot, I hope, on the back and forth among us. I'm assuming that because you're Americans, you will actually actively participate without a lot of what? Somebody not?
Oh, just one Canadian, one Canadian.
Okay, well, I just did 4 sessions in for Or Shalom and Aleph Canada. And every time I would say, so what do you think? And there would be this silence, polite silence, of course. So I'm assuming that this will be polite activity. And we'll help to draw this together. And I wanted 2 sessions because after the first, I don't know about you, but after the first, I'm always thinking, oh, I should have said that. Why didn't I think of that? And maybe you were also thinking that way. So hopefully it'll be a little more open-ended next week. So I want to do this in the context of where we are. And that's the thing that I want to ask. I remember a long time ago when I was still working at Dartmouth and we were doing a Yom HaAtzmaut celebration outside. And people kept asking us, how can we celebrate when there's so much injustice in the Middle East? I don't remember exactly what answer I gave, but that's a question which I keep hearing. I hear it in myself. I hear it from other people. How do you keep joy when there is so much suffering, right? How do we, let's keep it inside North America, right? And let's just say that, how do we go on, with this sense of celebration and joy when we know that people are being picked up on the street and people are being sent away, and people think that we Canadians don't really know about this. It doesn't really affect us, but it does. It affects us every single day. Not that we have ICE people on the streets of Toronto pulling people off and sending them away, but we do have this constant tension over Trump's way of going back and forth on issues, and the effect that it has on our people and on our economy. But when we say the economy, it also means the people, right? That's one of the things in a lot of places we've forgotten, right? Is that the economy is not an independent living entity. It is the function of the people. What just happened? Oh, okay. So we're all living in this, right? And as much as there are US-based podcasts on what's going on in the world now, there are Canadian podcasts that are exactly the same thing. There's a new one that just started called 2 Blocks from the White House. And it's Canadian, right? And it's them saying on a weekly basis, they give you an analysis of the news with its impact on Canada, right? Which I'm finding good to do, right? And there's a lot of that. The British do a lot too in their podcasts and so on. So how do we do that, right? Is the question that I think through which I want to approach Purim. Because after all, what is Purim but a celebration, right, of a great victory and all of that. And yet, how do you maintain that when it's not happening? So I thought we would start out by looking at the Megillah itself, the Megillah. But I'm a yeshiva kid from New York, so it's the Megillah for me. I wanted to spend some time just talking about the Megillah itself, which is why I asked you to read it before you came. I don't know how many of you did, but let's just say this way. When we think about Purim, first of all, let's just start with that. When we think about Purim, what comes up? Now, prove to me that you're really, truly North Americans.
Hamantashen.
Eh? Hamantashen. Okay, good.
Carnival.
Carnival. Yep, go ahead.
Esther and Haman and Mordechai.
Right, characters, right?
Yes, characters.
Characters. Go more. There's no wrong answer. What else? There's lots.
Go ahead, Helen.
Beyond duality.
Ooh, now you're getting profound.
Duality.
Pardon?
Going beyond duality.
Yeah, so we're going to come back to that, Ellen, because that's the profound, the beginning of the profound. But let's continue with what comes to mind.
Women as heroes.
Sorry?
Women as heroes.
Women as heroes. Okay, good.
No mention of God. Things.
I'm sorry, we two go at the same time. I can't hear either of you. So
No mention of God.
okay, no mention of God in the Megillah. That's right. That's right.
Lots and lots of things.
Lots and lots of
things. Lots.
I'm sorry.
Lots and lots of things, Dan?
Yeah, just
things. Okay. Yeah, by the way, as the song says, right, we're getting gray. Um, I now wear hearing aids, so and I have them on.
Go ahead, Shoshin Moshe, next.
There we go. Huh? Okay.
Anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism. Interesting. Okay.
And disingenuous retelling.
Wait a minute. Disingenuous retelling?
Retelling.
You
To the
want to
children.
unpack that just a little bit?
Never heard of chapter 9 until I got older, or whatever it is, the last chapter.
Well, the last chapter is very short.
Yeah.
Are you talking about that, or are you talking about something else? Something else.
The chapter where the retribution, where the
Yes. Well, I wanted to get to that very
part.
much.
That's
So
what I'm
glad you.
saying. The disingenuous of the childhood version of the story.
Oh, I see. Because the childhood version doesn't include that.
Correct.
Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Let's start with that, though. What else would you want to say about that chapter where they get into, the list of how many people they killed this day and how they wanted to do it for another day? And what do you think about that? Do any of you do you go to shuls where they read the Megillah and they read that chapter? Yes, no?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. So
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's a revenge fantasy.
It's what?
It's a revenge fantasy.
It's a revenge fantasy.
Yeah.
I think I would even go farther than that, but that's good. All right. Any more about that chapter? What do you think? Do any of you go to shuls or read the Megillah when they skip that chapter? No? Everybody reads it?
Yes. No, I never heard it read.
You never heard it read?
No. But
Okay.
then again, I'm not sure I tracked with the total Hebrew. I never knew the whole story until I became much more involved with all this.
Until you became much more involved with?
Aleph with Judaism,
Aleph, okay.
with studying all the story.
Yeah. Okay. Do any of you have any thoughts about the placement of this chapter? Let's say you're writing the Megillah. You're in charge of the editing process, and you've got all these manuscripts in front of you, and there's this one. Do you put it in or do you leave it out?
Kaya Lerner, what you got?
I just read recently that they think that it was put in at a later date, that it wasn't included in the original document.
Okay. I think so too. So what does that say about it? What does it say about the whole rest of the Megillah with this one chapter that seems odd? What do you think?
Ellen, you got something?
Hey?
Oh, that
Ellen
was,
Hesser.
sorry, that was from before and then we switched. So no, sorry.
Well, did you still have what you wanted to say from before?
I don't remember.
Oh, I know that one. Okay. I'm listening to the applause.
Go ahead, Meira Appel.
Rabbi
Yes,
Mark asked
hi.
me, he's going to tell me the story of that, of our first meeting. And I said, good, because I don't remember it. Yeah. And it's true, I didn't remember it, although it's definitely what I would have said. I would say.
Reb Daniel, I'll take the job of calling on people because I have a lot of, I can see everybody maybe more easily than you.
Okay.
And I know everybody for you.
I have you all on the gallery screen because I'd like to be able to
Great.
see. But I think that's a great idea. Thank you. Yes.
Meira and then Reb Chaya again.
Okay.
So,
Meira, where are you?
So, Reb Daniel, I was disappointed that you didn't mention B'nai Or in your history because that is my connection to you. You were my rabbi with Hannah for a number of years, very important years, and I had a tallis that you gave me for my 50th birthday that I still love and wear every Shabbos. So thank you.
Okay, my apologies for not remembering to mention that part of our.
That's okay. Renee is here too. She's from the
travels.
community.
Yes, no, I've been noticing. I know you. I've been seeing you, but for some reason it
So
didn't.
what I wanted to say about Purim was the intoxication, the revelry, the costumes and the masks and the unmasking of
Yep.
your other self.
Great.
Your opposite self, perhaps.
Yeah. Terrific. That was all. Yes, I'm glad you raised those things. I think they're important. So costumes, drinking,
Revelry. Yeah.
revelry. Revelry goes with drinking, I guess. But anyway, yeah.
So
Yeah.
are we still concentrating now on why chapter 9 is placed where it's placed?
Well, we can be, sure. That's what I would
Was that the,
do. But if you
is
have
that the
other
question?
ideas,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Chaya, and then who knows? Maybe D or S.
All right. Go ahead.
So I think chapter 9, it goes back to how the Jews were viewed as going to a slaughter during the Holocaust. And I think there's a parallel here that chapter 9 says we're not going to be victimized. We're going to rise up and tell the Persian government that we are not going to be victims. And so I think that was the key to this, to why they included chapter 9. But it also, because I did a whole paper and discussion about this in a class, an AOP class, and I think that what it did was it spurred on a lot of anti-Semitism. So you've got Baruch Goldberg or Goldsmith, who
Goldstein.
Goldstein, yeah,
Goldstein
yeah.
that massacres those people on near Purim in the mosque, and at the same time you've got the anti-Semitism from the Christian community that says we don't like you, or we have a reason not to like you. And I was just briefly, I'll just say this, that I've been watching Henry Louis Gates' documentary on Jews and blacks. And what Susanna Herschel says is that this was a way to, instead of massacring after the Holocaust, the Jews needed to collaborate with the African Americans as a way of coping with the history of the Shoah.
Okay, it's an interesting theory that you have, because the 9th chapter of the Megillah, written certainly before the 20th century, becomes the rationale for what happens in the 20th century. So, you use it, you can use it to go backwards in time, right? And as an anticipation, it's a very interesting way of looking at it. All right, so
let's go to Tacoma Park, Maryland.
So I always have these beliefs as a farmer worldview on the subjects. So our last holiday about sap rising in the trees, this is a continuation of that holiday in terms of the farm year, the agricultural year, another way of looking at Judaism through the eyes of a farmer.
Ah, all right. I think that's a subject for a whole session in itself, because I don't to make that connection really visible would be an interesting exploration for sure.
So I've got 2 shekels to throw in here, which is possibly it's a polemic in response to something going on at the time. And so we need this to say this in the last chapter in order to claim our power that doesn't seem to exist to protect us at this point in history. So I'm going to say it's some kind of polemic.
Okay. There was something, nope, whatever it was. There was something you said, put a thought through my head, but it went through my head and out the other end, so that's gone. Okay. Everybody sees that Jay is saying, oh, there you are. Okay. I get the chat comes up on my screen, and then I'm tempted to look at it. So I want to make sure that I know that I don't need to look at it. Okay, so oh, I know what the thought was. Just a minute. It was a thought that I actually had in preparation. Now I have to remember what it is. No, I can't for the moment. It'll probably come back in something else. So in the context of the rest of the Megillah, if chapter 9 or whatever chapter number it is stands out as being somehow different, right? In what ways? What's the rest of the Megillah like? Like, what's the I don't know how to say this without, oh, I know what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is my theme for all the little bit of so-called teaching that I've been doing lately is I like the expression, this might mean. That's what I like. Not this does mean, but this might mean, because we are totally hung up on, now I always forget the word, but it's the word of the day, the by well, come on, what kind of two-sided thinking, right? Everything is black or white. What's
Binary.
the word? Huh?
Binary.
Binary. Thank you. So we're all stuck in binary thinking. Without hardly even knowing that we are. Even when we say we're not, we still are, most of us, like we may be thinking about non-binary in terms of gender, but we're totally binary when it comes to religious truth or when it comes to something else. So the thing is to throw that open, because that is the way we think, right? That's the way Jews, Mediterranean people have thought for, as we always say about indigenous people these days, from time immemorial, right? We've always done that. The famous expression, right? Elu ve'elu divrei Elohim chaim, right? These and these are the words of the living God. And the law follows Hillel. Why does the law follow Hillel? Because we like him better. But doesn't mean Shammai's wrong, right? That you light candles, I'm sorry, I'm in Hanukkah candles now, right? You light Hanukkah candles 1 to 8 or 8 to 1, right? It's not that the 8 to 1 is wrong. It's just that it's a different theory. And we tend to gravitate towards the other theory that the miracle gets bigger each week. And we can only light one set of Hanukkah candles to make a bracha over. So you have to make a choice, right? But it doesn't mean you're choosing between good and bad. Right? You're just choosing between, you have to make a choice. You make a choice, right? So, and by the way, I mean, I know homes for sure, like I think when Hannah and I are together, one of us will light 1 to 8 and the other one will light 8 to 1. So I just want to say that this might mean, right? So we don't get stuck on it. So the way that I have been sort of thinking about the Megillah on and off for quite some time and what it might mean, right, is what's the outline of the story? And why does chapter 9 not quite fit into that outline? Why does it stand out in some way, right? From the rest of the Megillah, not just by itself, but from the rest of the Megillah. Right. Take a second. I see your hand. Just take a second and just let everybody have a chance to think for a second. Okay, time's up. What do you think?
For me, the rest of the Megillah is almost fantasy-like. It's got all these descriptions and possibilities and terrors, and then 9 comes along and it's a very different energy. It's written differently. It's just they don't go together.
That's right. So what happens then if let's say we did a Megillah without 9, right? Shulamit, were you going to say something?
I was just trying to say that I think that 9 was written at a different time than.
We've said that, right? So it likely was written. In other words, it stands out for that reason, right? If for no other reason than literary, it stands out, right? But what would be, what would the Megillah look like without 9? What do you think it is? Think of it in terms of its chapters. Chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. What is it?
I think it's about absurdity. You have a king who is drunk and and partying with his friends, and then asking his wife to appear nude and exposing herself, and about modesty, and how this guy Mordechai enlists his niece to be in the king's court and replace Vashti. So there's a lot of parallels with the 21st
So if I were,
century.
but if,
But it's
but
it's an absurdity fantasy, almost misogynistic fantasy.
okay, I want to take out the misogynist just because I think that's a serious thing, right? Is the Megillah serious? See, that's
No,
what you're really pointing to that, right? Is the Megillah serious?
no, it's not. No.
It's not really, right? And I was thinking, I have a note that I made to myself yesterday, I think, or the day before. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how all these people in the first chapter are named, right? Karsana, Marsha, whatever, all the advisors, right? And the eunuchs and all these, they all have names, right? Now, if I were doing that today, how would I get those names across? How might I get those names across?
Social media.
Social media is close. Not quite what I'm thinking of, but it's close. What would be well, let me put it a different way. Maybe I'll make the question easier to answer. What would be the medium that I would be most likely to use if I were writing the same Megillah today? But if I were writing it, what medium would I likely use? It's actually not a trick question.
Susan Chaya?
No. Can I,
Susan,
I'm not really sure what medium, but I wanted to say that it seems to me that the Megillah story is about us cleverly protecting ourselves. Things keep happening and we're very clever and we're protecting ourselves. Chapter 9 is about us being the ones who originate the story and go after our enemies. It's a completely different energy. It's violent, as opposed to a story that has importance but has a lot of silliness in it.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Right. So if you take that serious chapter out, right? I don't know if you've seen this, but I because of a former student of mine at Dartmouth works for YouTube, and we've stayed in touch, all these years. So now I've been attracted to YouTube, and I'm appreciating its algorithm because it knows me already, right? It knows that when I go on YouTube, I want political stuff and I want Hasidic music. There's a huge amount of wonderful Hasidic music on YouTube, and I've been learning Nigunim for the first time from there. So that's where I've been spending my time, and it knows I'm a Canadian. So what do I get to see? All these Canadian video clips, not of real people, but the one I liked the most was when the Greenland thing was really hot for a while. And there was a Canadian-made film where the Canadians send a huge number of beavers over to Greenland, and Greenland has penguins, which of course they don't, but they have penguins. And the French send what do the French send? I don't remember, but everybody sends something else, and they're all singing and dancing and talking about Trump's not going to get here, and we're standing for all all that kind of. That's the medium that they use, right? So the medium that they use is a YouTube video, right? That's the medium. And it's fun, right? It's fun about something serious. Yeah. So that's, are you putting up your hand over there? Who's that? Go ahead. Yeah. No,
Got Shoshin Moshe and then
Yeah, Chaya's got it in the chat there, like Substacks or blog posts or YouTube's, as you've said.
Absolutely right. These would be the vehicles that we would use, right, today. So do I need, but I was thinking even more, I guess, because I'm older now, I was thinking more about a movie, right? So if I do a movie, do I have to name all the characters as part of the movie, or do I give you a piece of paper that has the characters on it, right? A playbill. Yeah. So think about that, and Renee, say what you wanted to say. You're muted.
So it's the rest of the Megillah is farcical. And Barbara Ehrenreich wrote about this in her book Dancing in the Streets, how, like this can be a reversal of powers in a way that actually is pretty benign and not really challenging to the structure that exists. Whereas in chapter 9, obviously, that ends up all of that. But the rest of it is like this, and we keep those festivities. There's Mardi Gras, there's all of the festivities in which, you'll get a reversal and this farcical kind of way of challenging, at least briefly, those who are really in power.
So let me now stop sort of teasing you, and let's look at this. First chapter of the Megillah, introduction, right? Let me introduce the characters to you, right? There's the king, who's a silly guy and likes to get drunk, but also likes to give parties to his friends, right? He enjoys that, yeah? And he's got these advisors. And then he went over the top and he asked his queen to come and do something that she didn't want to do, right? So she stands up to him. So what happens? This the beginning of the plot begins to emerge, right? And his advisors say to him, as we do all the time, right? We take something specific. When I learned mediation, the cliche was any dispute, no matter how soluble, can be rendered insoluble if you generalize about it enough. Right? I see that happen on the Ohala list all the time, right? Somebody writes about a very specific issue, and by the third response, we're talking global, right? But then the issue is not being addressed anymore. Right? So here we are in this thing where they say, oh, Vashti didn't do this just to you, O king. She did it to all of us, right? So we have to take a huge response, right? We have to bring out the heavy artillery. We have to get rid of Vashti. Nobody's clear exactly how they got rid of her, whether she's still alive or not. But anyway, we got to get rid of Vashti, and then we have to bring somebody else in. Then what happens? Next chapter, what happens? This guy, Haman, appears out of nowhere, right? And all of a sudden becomes a big shot. And in, similarly to what we experience, what we are presently experiencing, he really has a big ego. And he needs people to bow down to him to prove that he's somebody good, because obviously he's terribly insecure. So he has to bring it. So now comes archetypes, right? So you have the one of the beauties of the Megillah, first of all, is the way the trup changes for a certain number of verses, right? So it says, then the other character is introduced, right? Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira, right? Ushemo Mordechai ben Yair, or with something ben Yair, Ish Yemini. Now, what does that mean? It's a code, right, for us. What's an Ish Yemini? It's not a right-handed man.
Who's my right hand?
No, it's not about right. It's not really a right hand.
Righteous.
It's identifying him by tribe. Ish Yemini is a Benjamin, is somebody from Binyamin. Who was the first king of Israel?
Saul.
What tribe was he from?
Binyamin.
Yeah, Binyamin. What is Haman called? Haman the Ha'agagi. What does that mean? He's an Agagi. Who's an Agag? Who's Agag?
Tribe of God.
Hey?
Tribe of Gad.
No. Haman's not Jewish. Right? Yeah, no. See?
Yeah, his ancestors attacked us from the rear.
Yeah. He is the descendant of the last king of the Amalekites. Right? Who are the Amalekites? They're the people who go after you, and try to cut the weak ones off the flock, right? Like, people think that wolves attack, mature elk, but they don't. They go for the babies, right? That's what they do. They go for the weak ones, right? So he is a descendant, right? Somehow there was this feeling that not all of Agag's children got killed, right? They should have been, or so the Torah, Tanakh wants us to believe. But nevertheless, so he is a descendant of. So what do you have? You have the descendants of the two primal enemies.
Yes.
Right? Now, it's possible that Mordechai could have been a Benjamite. That's possible. Is it likely that Haman was a descendant of Agag? Very unlikely. But they put it in there, right? Because what does it do? It's a code that we understand, right? We get it. So we should, right? Now you do, right? We get it that this is not just, this bad man against this good man. It's not just that, right? It's more than that. Right? It's the name that we associate with the worst kind of evil, right? The kind of evil that preys on the weak. It's one thing to be, strong like Goliath, right? So he's a bad guy too, but he's not the same. He's not evil in that way because he's willing to face, any challenger, right? He's not hiding behind anything. He's not sniping at the flanks of Saul's army. He's right out there and daring people to come and fight him directly. So we don't like him, of course, it doesn't work out well for him either, but, we don't like him very much, but he's not somebody like an Amalekite, right? Because they represent the real other side. If you read, mystical and Hasidic literature about that, that's of course how they look at it, right? That you're looking at the primal enemies. So the scene is set, right? The queen is out. A new queen is needed. There is this guy from Jerusalem named Mordechai. And the trup changes, right? When you get that, it says, Ish Yehudi haya b'Shushan habira, u'shemo Mordechai ben Yair, Ishimini, right? Ishimini, asher hagla miYerushalayim, imagola asher haglita, right? What is that? What's that shift?
Shifts the morning.
Yeah. We're shifting to Echatrap, right? We're shifting to Tisha B'Av, right? You see, who is this Mordechai? He was the one who was exiled from Jerusalem in the first exile, right? They say there were two from Jerusalem. And so, I don't mean the one, the Romans. I mean, there were two in a 10-year period. So he's, even the music kind of, gives you this sense of, there's this going on and then there's that going on, right? So there's sadness here and joy there or whatever, right? And that's who he is. So that's all set up, right? And then what happens, and this I think is one of the things that in my mind, gives the Megillah away. How does Achashverosh choose his new wife? What does it say?
Beauty contest.
It's a beauty contest, but it's not Miss America. What is it? What kind of beauty contest is it? What does it say about these women who were gathered to audition to be the queen? What's their primary,
They're virgins. They have to be virgins.
They have to be virgins because
They haven't been with any other man.
Well, that's what a virgin is, yes.
Yeah.
But why is that significant? What's the audition? She have to sing? Does she have to dance like a Miss America? Does she have to put on a fancy gown like a Miss America? What's the audition? I got to tell you, this is the kind of thing that I find, because I'm doing Purim alone most of the time. I don't have a shul here, right? So I sit and I read the Megillah. We actually have a Megillah scroll in the house. So I read it, but I read it. Nobody interrupts me. I can read it as slowly as I want. Right? Huh? Somebody said something, but I didn't hear it. So you understand. So I find these things almost every year. I find something I didn't see the previous year. So what is that, right? What's the audition?
Okay, Daniel, the audition, I think, is that they each sleep with him. And
it says, Ba'erev hi ba'a uva boker, right? She comes in the evening, she leaves in the morning, and she goes to the Pilegesh house, to the concubine house, until if and when he calls her again, right? So that's, I mean, we wouldn't think of this as being something that belongs in the Tanakh, right? This kind of story. But this is what they're saying. This is the audition, right? So Esther has to go to this audition, right? A modest Jewish woman who would rather not be there at all, and who certainly doesn't want to audition in this way. And not only does she have to do it, but she obviously does it very well, right? Because he is so pleased with her, right, that he anoints her as the queen right away. Okay, so now we have Achashverosh, the silly guy, Mordechai, the hero, Haman, the bad guy, Esther positioned in the right place, inside the palace, right? Then what happens? Next chapter. Oh, but then of course Haman goes to the king, right? I mean, there's that whole part, and says there's this people, and again, by the way, he's mad at Mordechai, right? But he wants to take it out on everybody. Yeah, like that's so, if your skin is brown, you must be a target for ICE because your skin is brown, right? So it shouldn't be that way, right? It should only be the people who really have criminal records, right? So in this case, right, he says, there is this guy Mordechai. Everybody else bows down to me. He doesn't. And he's part of these people that you would be well off to kill them all and confiscate everything they have, right? Which, of course, Achashverosh probably wants because he spent so much on these parties, right? I mean, there's all these parties at the beginning of the Megillah. So then, all right, so then that's set up, right? And the king agrees, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't know who these people are. So he agrees, right? Haman is excited. And then what happens? The pivot, right? It's the pivot chapter. What happens in the pivot chapter? Oh, you know this.
Well, the honoring of Mordechai.
Right, and why?
Because he had overheard a plot against the king, and he
Right.
interrupted it.
And nothing had been done for him, right? And the king has insomnia, right? So here it is, this thing, right? The king has insomnia. So what do you do to cure insomnia in those days? You do sort of what I do. I listen
Well, you read. Somebody reads to you.
Somebody reads to him the chronicles, right? Of that somebody has been writing down the ongoing history of the place. And so this person reads out what Mordechai did for him. And Achashverosh says, well, what have we done for him? Right? And they say, well, nothing. He says, oh my goodness, we got to fix that. Who shows up at exactly that moment?
Haman.
Right? That's right. Our villain, right? Our house villain shows up at exactly that moment because he wants to tell the king that he's going to hang Mordechai on this big, tall gallows, right? And what happens? He walks in, right? And the king says to him, what should I do to honor somebody who wants to be honored? So what does Haman think? He's our Trump in this one, right? He's seeing, oh, who else would he want to honor but me? Name the tunnel after me, right? See, we do follow your American news, right? Name the tunnel after me. Name the airport after me. Name the building after me. Name everything after me, right? I think I've seen the late night comedian say, well, the best thing we could name after him is the Epstein files. Right. So the Trump Epstein files, because his name is so much in there. Anyway, the point is he's got that, right? So who else could it possibly be? So he puts out what he thinks he would like, right? Because he thinks he's going to be honored. And sure enough, who does he have to do all this to? The guy he hates the most, Mordechai. He goes back home after that's happened, and he's unhappy and he's defeated. And basically his wife and advisors say, oh, we didn't realize that Mordechai was a Jew. You're in trouble. Right? And then comes the final chapter, right, in which Esther says, I need something from you, my king. He says, anything you want. She says, well, come tonight and have a drink with me. You and Haman come and have a drink with me. And then we come the next night and we'll have another drink. And then I'll tell you what it is. Right. And then that whole thing happens. Right. And by the way, there is that one more sexual thing that goes on, because Achashverosh, when he finds out what's going on, storms out of the room. Esther is lying on the couch, because that's how they did it in those days. It wasn't that, she wasn't being seductive. She was just lying on the couch because they stayed on couches. They didn't sit on straight back chairs. So she's there, and Haman falls on her, in order to beg for mercy. Achashverosh walks back in, and Haman's in trouble again. Right? What? You're going to try to make love with my wife when I'm here? What's with you? So what have we got? Right? Then it just says, then everything that Haman wanted to do to Mordechai was done to him. He was hung, right? Mordechai is promoted, and right, the end. Happy ever after, right? What have we got here? What might we say we have here? I would call it a script. I'd say this is a play, right? This is a play that was written, right? It's not characteristically Jewish. It's not let me say it differently. Up to that point, it wasn't characteristically Jewish. We got good at that, and we got better at that, technically untrue, in the early 20th centuries and 20th century, and then post-Holocaust. We were actually good at it in Eastern Europe too, making fun of situations, right? So we have this play, right, which gets put into the Tanakh. If you don't have that chapter 9 in it, I think it holds together very well, right? If you put chapter 9 in it, it doesn't, right? Now, what would that mean in terms of the way we think about things? I'll just say it. So here, these somebody, right, took this literally, right? Somebody said this actually happened in exactly the way the Megillah tells it, and therefore it's appropriate to ask, when it was our turn, how many did we kill, right? How many did we get, right? And somebody lists all of that. Somebody who's very literal about things, right? Much more literal than I think the Megillah wants us to think of it. So we have a play, right? We have a play which is classic in the way it divides itself. I'm sure that these people, the authors, had some acquaintance with Greek theater. I'm sure they must have. So you have this play of this is what happens, right? And this fits all the patterns of how it should, right? It's a well-written play. It has its beginning, it has its character introductions, it has the beginnings of the plot, it has a transition where when it looks like all is lost, all is not going to be lost, right? There's a transition that starts, another storyline that gets going, and then that one ends up good and everybody's happy at the end, and we sing La Yehudim Haita Ora V'Simcha, right? That the Jews had light and joy and all of that. Right? Maybe we'll do at the end. We still have a few more minutes. So you see what did I think I wrote this to you. I'm not sure if I did, but I said I have it in, where did I see it? I was looking at it before. I know why. It was in the blurb, right? So the blurb said, we will explore the Purim story as a history of a time that has not yet happened. The history of a time which has not yet happened. So let me ask a different question, and then I think what we'll do is next week we'll look at the texts, right, and talk a little more freely with each other. But for right now, when I told you about that experience that I had at Dartmouth on Yom HaAtzmaut, where we were having something outside and people were asking us about how could we do this when there's so much suffering, right? Is Purim the only thing that we can think of in our tradition which gives you the history of a time which has not yet happened? And it's not Hanukkah because there's really good documentation that Hanukkah actually happened. Not the oil stuff, but the rebellion and the liberating of the temple and all that. That actually happened. What examples do we have? I have two others on my list. What if I said?
What?
Go ahead.
I'm thinking Pesach when we welcome Eliyahu Hanavi, and I suspect the Eliyahu Hanavi is also going to. It might also be when we make Havdalah.
Oh, that's interesting. That's not on my list, but that could very well be on the list. Sure. Because what's the why do we welcome Eliyahu Hanavi at Havdalah? Let me ask it that way. Why do you think we do that?
I think it's because it's a moment of liminality, a space between a sacred space out of time and entering back into a more world of duality. And so there's a moment where we are yearning to know Yah all through the hollowed out time, the chilul of that is the weekdays. So there's that moment of, since Eliyahu is going to be announcing the coming of Mashiach, that this should be happening right now.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say, folks, pay attention. This is a good rabbi, a really good rabbi, giving, what is a really good, deep explanation. And at the very end, right, you put in what I was looking for the main part, right? Say that again at the very end.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I was looking for a way to hand you the ball, for next week. What I said was, I think, that there is time that is out of time.
No. You're going back too far in what you said.
Okay, Shabbat.
The very end of what you said.
Okay, so that is that Eliyahu Hanavi shall be he'll be announcing the coming of the Mashiach, of the Messiah.
That's right. What is the first moment in the week when Mashiach could come is right after Havdalah, right? Eliyahu is not going to come on Shabbos, God forbid, right? So we have Shabbos, right? And it would also be that perfect Shabbos that we've supposedly been waiting for. And so Eliyahu comes on Saturday night, right? And that's why we welcome him, why we sing about him and all of that. The same holds true at Pesach. It's the same kind of idea, right? When will the final redemption begin? Well, obviously, after we celebrate the previous redemption, right? So Eliyahu's going to come there, and that's what we do. So Eliyahu visits the Seder, But it's not so much that Eliyahu, I mean, my father used to, when I was at the door, he would spill a couple of drops of wine. And then he would say, oh, you see, Elijah the prophet was careless. He drank too fast. Right? And unfortunately, I got to say, I believed it for a long time. The first time I caught him doing that, I cried. I really did. I wasn't that old, probably about 30. But, no, I was more like, I guess I was still, pre-bar mitzvah. But I really, because I grew up, I was in Orthodox schools where they, that all this was literal, right? I mean, I remember the first time I took off my yarmulke, or I took off my hat and said Adonai and waited to get struck down, and I wasn't, right? So you understand, I took that, but that's what it is, right? Pesach is that. Pesach is the redemption from before, right? Which we hope this year is the gateway to the redemption after, to the final redemption, right? So how do we finish? How do we finish, right? Chasal Sidur Pesach, it's over, right? We finished it up. Maybe we get to do it again, right? Next time in Jerusalem, L'Shana Haba Yerushalayim, right? So it is that sense that we are already feeling that we are approaching the end, right? What do we call Shabbos? That's the other one I was thinking about. If I say Me'ein Olam Haba, anybody register that? Oh, there are
It's a
people here who do.
it's
I
a
know
taste
there.
of the world. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, it's something of the world to come. So how do we live on Shabbos, right? We live as though we were now in the world to come, but the world to come is now, right? So how do we deal, you see, in this way with how do we continue to celebrate in times of trouble, right? And one of our answers is we project ourselves into the world as we wish it could be and live in that for at least one day a week, if we can do that. Right? That's why there are all these regulations and things, don't talk too much, walk slowly, right? Take the most direct route to shul, but take a meandering thing back, spend some time with friends, have good food. Aren't these the things that we would be wanting to do if we were in the world as we wished it were? So that's what we do. And so that's what I'm trying. Oh, now unfortunately, it's probably dark where you are, and it's just getting dark here. So I'm having trouble seeing my clock. I guess I could put a light on. That's all right. So so this is what this Purim falls into a category similar to these other ones. And when we look at the text next week, as you probably hopefully already have, it's pretty obvious. You'll see. And then we'll talk about it, we'll talk about it some more um, uh, um, just among ourselves, right? So we see what else we come up with and what else we feel. So, but what I'm really trying to point out is that Purim is more than a children's holiday, right? It's more than costumes. Costumes are a part of it, and they used to be part of it for the adults too, and it still is. But the core of Purim was always the reading of the Megillah. You remember, I think I put somewhere in there that we're supposed to drown out the Haman's name, right? But we never do, because we don't start our groggers until after we hear his name. Right? We should be following the Megillah and anticipating that 2 seconds before his name is and drown it out, right? Because that's the point of it. The point of it is not to make a lot of noise. The point is to stay, we're drowning out the bad guy, right? It's like, I don't know who remembers this, but do you remember Country Joe and the Fish? Yeah,
It's
remember
1,
that?
2,
So you
3.
remember the, huh?
1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for?
Yes, but they had a little routine. I think on the second album, they had a little routine that said, "Let's hear it for the good guys." And they went, "Yay, good guys. Let's hear it for the bad guys. Boo, bad guys." Then they would go, "Let's hear it for the good guys. Let's hear it for the bad guys. Let's hear it for the good guys, bad guys, good guys, bad guys." Until what? You couldn't tell the difference between, right, the cheering and the booing. What do we say on Purim? Why do you drink on Purim? You don't drink to get drunk. Why do you drink?
So you can't tell the difference between
Aha.
wicked Haman and beloved Mordechai.
That's right.
Blessed
That's
one.
exactly the point, right? That you get to the point where you can't quite differentiate between them. And why is that? It's not that it makes Haman good and Mordechai bad. It's not what it does. What does it do?
It takes us beyond duality.
Sorry?
It takes us beyond duality
Yes, and that was where
into
you
the world to be.
Yes. So who started with that? Who said that at the beginning, you said that, right? And I said, we come back to it. We did, right? You see how organically we came back to it. Exactly the point, right? That's exactly the point. So I'll close with another little story. Back in the days when I was a Reconstructionist, I listened to the talk that Larry Kushner gave to the conference. I wasn't there that year, I think, but I listened to the talk that he gave. And I remember this line where he said, he was talking about the end of days and how things were going to be. And then he said, and somebody said to him, well, what about the snake in the garden, right? What about the snake? He says, he says, Harry, the snake, come on out, Harry, and take a bow. You've been working for me all along, right? So that awareness, right, is in a sense what Purim and Shabbos, right? But Purim in its special way wants us to experience. So now, next time, we'll talk about how the sources talk about it a little bit, and we'll talk about how this can or and what the difficulties are and how it can work for us right now with Purim coming up, because it's over for you, but Rosh Chodesh is just barely ending for me. So we're in Adar, we're all in Adar. Okay. All right. So let's finish. But can I finish with a melody?
Of course, I was going to do one, but I'm going to pass it to you.
All right. So this one was written by our old friend Yitzchak Husband Tankin. And it goes with that expression that is in the Megillah, right? Like Yehudim Haita Ora v'Simcha v'Sason Vikar, and we do it in Havdalah also, and we add Kein Tihiyeh Lanu. May this be also for us. Like this joins. La Yehudim Haita Ora v'Simcha Sason Vikar. La Yehudim Haita Ora v'Simcha V'sason vikar la Yehudim Haita ora simcha v'sason vikar kein tiyeh lanu. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Correction, it wasn't written by Yitz. That was Al Hanisim that he wrote. This is Mickey Shur, I think. Mordechai Shur wrote this one, I think. Okay, anyway, there we are, right?
Thank you so much, Reb Daniel.
Thank you all, and look forward to next time.
Next week, 7:30, tell your friends. How could we not end a session reminding us all that we were supposed to increase joy in this month? And so here's some picture of joy right there. Misha, 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 Nichnas Adar. Misha, 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 Nichnas Adar. Misha, Nichnas Adar, Marvein Besimcha. Misha, Nichnas Adar, Marvein Besimcha. Everybody put your hands together. Ya 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 la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya ya la 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 la. Hey, la 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 ya la 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 ya ya la 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 la. Misha nichnas Adar marvein v'simcha. Misha nichnas Adar marvin besimcha. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. It goes Meira. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya